and welcome to another episode of the CattleUSA Daily Podcast. Today, we are going to be doing something a little new around here and trying out a new potential weekly segment for you guys where I come on Fridays and share with you guys some top news stories that I saw this week. So things that either are directly reported on ag news websites or just other relevant news, maybe national news, stuff like that, that might be relevant to agriculturalists. So this week I have picked 4 topics that scouring the internet, kind of seeing everything else that's going on, I felt was relevant to you guys as listeners, as cattle producers, as agriculturalists, things like that, to kind of hit on. So I'm excited to start bringing you guys a new style of segment and kind of bring in some news aspects to this as well as we continue to grow out this podcast and just kind of find our groove and what works for you guys, what resonates with you, what works for us, what I feel confident and good talking about, all of those things like that. So let's go ahead and dive in. And first and foremost, I am very excited about this first piece of news. So back in 2023, I believe, it was ruled in the EPA, there was a ruling over WOTUS, which is waters of the United States. And there was a redefinition done then. And as agriculturalists, we've been fighting for the past few years that it wasn't clarified well enough. There were some holes in it. There were still some specific things that we were battling. So super exciting news. On March 12th, EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin announced plans to revise the definition of WOTUS once again. The initiative aims to improve clearer regulations, reduce red tape, and lower permitting costs for agricultural operations. The EPA seeks to revise and clarify the WOTUS definition and intends to publish a notice of Federal Register soliciting public comments and announcing stakeholder listening sessions. This revision is significant for us beef producers and every just agriculturalist in general. This opportunity for us to kind of have our voices heard as far as waters of the United States goes and the EPA's regulations on all of those and everything like that, especially with just all of these water rights issues and just different things that we deal with across the nation and in the Midwest. This is super exciting news. So I'm very relieved that our voices are starting to be heard and that we're hopefully going to get a ruling on this very soon. The next one I want to talk about is we all know how the discussion of trade and tariffs is very large right now. It is a big initiative in this current administration, and it has just been top of mind for a lot of producers in agriculture, as a lot of our industry and livelihood depends on those imports and exports of agricultural products. So we have been in the news talking about that for weeks. So I'm not going to go over anything that maybe has already been reported on, or most of you are probably going to know, things like that. I'm just going to focus on some newer aspects that have happened in the past week or 2 weeks. And then hopefully we're able to get a guest on that is way more knowledgeable than I am about trade and about tariffs and all of that stuff that is kind of going on. Because I'm going to be frank with you guys, I know enough, but not necessarily enough to be able to sit here and talk to you guys solo about all of it super confidently. So we're hopefully going to be able to have someone on to discuss this a little bit more. But first and foremost, the thing that I do want to discuss with this is a couple weeks ago, China imposed levies on Canadian farm exports, which dramatically altered the crop markets. And this was, I think, 2 weeks ago at this point. So it's been a little bit, but that was a major thing that happened. And then additionally, $3 billion worth of U.S. meat exports are at risk as China continues to delay their plant approvals or reapprovals. Again, this isn't necessarily new news. We saw this back in February, but it is happening once again. We are seeing a few more plants be added to this list of China not re-upping their approvals on the dates that they expire and stuff like that. So it's continuing to be a developing situation, but with that, it is just creating some uncertainty with what we're seeing in our export markets, and we could potentially see some impacts on beef producers and stuff like that. I know that a lot of our national organizations are working really hard to combat these things, but it is something to be aware of as producers, that we are facing some continued export and tariff challenges and just different things like that. The next thing I want to discuss is this got released on March 19th. So it would have been on Thursday this week. It got released that President Trump's proposal to impose substantial fees on China-made ships entering U.S. ports is causing some disruption to agricultural exports. The plan includes fines for up to $1.5 million per China-made vessel visit, which leads to shortages of ships for exporting agricultural goods like corn, soybeans, and wheat. This shortage could increase transportation costs by up to $930 million annually, affecting producers' bottom lines. The biggest thing with this is, as a country, we don't own a very large fleet of ships that are transporting goods internationally. A lot of what we do with our trade with international countries, like China, for instance, is they send a ship of goods over, and then we backload that ship back to China. And so what is happening here is we are going to be seeing some disruptions with that market and the ability to be able to use other countries' vessels. Still an ever-evolving situation. There's a lot of politics that go into things like that. But again, something to be aware of as it continues to just impact different industries and stuff like that, and potentially agricultural industries and exports and imports as it continues to evolve. And fourth and finally, I feel like a terrible host because I failed to recognize that on the 18th, it was National Agriculture Day. And I feel like that should have been something that I should have known, but I am embarrassed to admit that I did not know it until I was scrolling social media on the 18th and saw a bunch of other companies posting about National Ag Day. And I was like, oh, kind of dropped the ball as host on that one. So from us here at CattleUSA and me and my team, thank you for all that you do. I hope that as agriculturalists, you know that you are appreciated and that you are providing something really great for this amazing country that we live in. National Ag Day is just one day that some appreciation gets thrown at us, but know that you're appreciated each and every single day and all of the things like that. So that's all I had for you guys today. Those are kind of my top 4 stories that I saw. If there are any relevant links, I will have them linked down below so that if there's something you want to learn more about, see those press releases that I'm kind of sharing my information about, see my resources, stuff like that, to learn more. Check out those show notes and I will have them linked down below so that you guys can go dive more into any of these topics because I hit pretty high level on them. It was just kind of a, hey, this is happening, maybe pay attention to it, but didn't go into a ton of detail. So happy Friday. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. I'm super excited because next week I am going to be in DC for the entire week. And so we're going to see a little bit of a change up in our episodes, a little bit of a change in just routine for us here at the podcast. So I am going with a Kansas agricultural leadership group that I am a part of. And we're going and just having really great meetings and discussions with policymakers, both our representatives and senators that are representing Kansas on a national level up at Capitol Hill. And then we're also going to be having some really great conversations with other ag groups and non-ag groups that represent different organizations in Washington, D.C., and just having discussions with them on current topics in agriculture, leadership in ag, what that kind of looks like, just having some really awesome discussions. So I am excited that while I'm in D.C., I'm going to be able to bring you guys some real-time info on things that we're discussing, maybe some things that I'm learning, and just bring it back to you guys. So my hope is for at least a couple, maybe 3 of the days that I'm down there next week, I'm able to do some late evening recordings, record all the things that I learned that day and any other relevant info, and then get those podcast episodes to you guys the following day and continue to kind of do that throughout the week. So Monday, we will still have our weather episode with Gary as we do every single Monday. I would never take that away from you guys. And then following that, we'll see a little bit of a change up with just me doing some DC reports. I'm even have our weekly report on markets with Dan is going to be recorded on Wednesday when I have a free hour down at the Tidal Basin during, it's actually the Cherry Blossom Festival is going on, and we have a free hour down there to get lunch and do some other things. So luckily I'm going out a day early, so I'm already going to be able to tour all of that. So I decided to use that time to record my podcast episode with Dan on Wednesday. So hopefully I'll have a pretty background, right? Hopefully there'll be some cherry blossoms behind me or stuff like that. But I'm excited to bring you guys all of that stuff next week. And I hope that you all have a great weekend and just a blessed rest of your Friday. As always, if you enjoyed this podcast, please like, subscribe, rate, review, share with a friend, all of those things. We really appreciate it here at the team and just the ability that you give us to continue to grow as a platform and as a company and things like that. We really appreciate it because we just want to be able to continue to impact more cattlemen throughout the industry and just bring awesome information and relevant news to you guys each and every day. So thank you again for all that you guys do as agriculturalists. Have a blessed rest of your Friday, and we will see you all on Monday.